Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. It's an honor and a privilege to have the one and only Jeff Schroeder back on the show. Jeff, most well known, of course, as being the guitar player in the Smashing Pumpkins. And let's get into the story. Jeff was on the show once before, and he did a really great interview. So if you haven't seen it before, make sure you check it out. Go to our YouTube channel. Again, Jeff's most well known as a guitarist of Smashing Pumpkins. He initially took James Iha's place and was with the band from 2007 to his amicable departure in October 2023. Jeff recorded 5 studio albums with the band, and after band leader Billy Corgan and drummer Jimmy Chamberlain, Jeff was the third longest serving member of the group. He's got a new album out called Metanoia, and actually we'll talk about the name in the interview. But we'll talk about his new record, find out why he left the Pumpkins. And as a side note, Jeff is literally one of the most intelligent people I've had the opportunity to speak.
That's not true.
You are. No, I just had to put away my thesaurus, and just in the preamble we were talking. So no, he's a super bright, and he's incredibly, if you're a Barbara Walters fan, incredibly well read. Dude, thanks so much for coming back on the show, man. It's good to see you.
Oh no, my pleasure. It's funny because when I thought about, when I was okay, I'm going to put out this record, I said one of the first people I need to contact is Craig because I love this show so much because you've had so many great players on here.
Thank you.
And as you know, there's so many different outlets now which never existed before, which is incredible. And Billy, I love it as a musician, as a guitar player. You want to go down a rabbit hole with somebody, there's content like never before.
Sure.
But I think you've carved a unique space because while it is about, guitars and pickups and amps, but you really relate it to this kind of larger sphere of life and how it relates to people's kind of life journey and whatnot. And I think that's so important, and it makes the interviews ultimately much more interesting, in my opinion. So,
Jeff, thank you
I
very much.
commend you.
Thank you, man. Thanks. If you were here, I'd give you a hug right now. Thank you very much, man. And by the way, I got to see. If you've never seen Jeff play, I was fortunate when the Pumpkins were down here. I got to see Jeff. Phenomenal show. And he's a tremendous. I'm not just saying. I mean, Billy Corgan even said that. That what an integral part of the band he is. So if you ever get a chance to listen to Jeff's music and see him play, do both. You'll enjoy it. All right. So you didn't waste much time. I mean, you left the Pumpkins 6 months ago, and now you've got a 70-minute 4-track record of music, ambient music, already completed. And so that pat yourself on the back, man. That's. I'm sure it was not easy figuring out, what do you want to do when you graduate high school after you left the Pumpkins, but that's pretty impressive. Was that project was that in motion before you left, or was that all since you left?
Well, let me explain kind of the origins of it, so in fact, because I sent you just a private link because I just got the actual mastered versions of it, and so I uploaded it to this SoundCloud just so you could check it out, so you don't get any of the information. It's actually a live recording. It's completely live. And so it was recorded actually in 2021. And in the artwork you see the actual dates. And so actually how it started, Metanoia was part of an art installation that I did, a collaboration with an artist in Toronto. I got asked to perform in a massive outdoor art installation that was in this place called Fort York in Toronto. And so over the course of 3 days, I did, 7 45-minute performances, and then one short. We had to do at the first night. We had to do like a 15-minute version for like the city, for like the mayor and stuff. They didn't want the full 45 minutes. They're just like, hey, give us a taste of what this is like, and then so we can give our speeches and basically, thank everybody for like, hey, we gave you this money to do this event. But when I knew that I was doing it, I thought, I should record everything. And so when we were putting the writer together and the sound, people were asking me what I wanted. I said, hey, make sure that there's a computer with Pro Tools that can record all the audio. And so basically it's all improvised solo guitar. It's just me on guitar, and I used my Line 6 Helix, and I actually used the Variax, the James Tyler Variax guitar,
Yeah.
so I could switch between some different guitar configurations. And I had one other pedal, and it's all listed in the artwork. And so only thing that I did is I kind of predetermined keys that I wanted to improvise in. And so, and I switched, and I would stay in one key per day. So I can't remember, it was like D and E, I think, because I felt those, because I wanted to use open strings,
Right.
because for the drones and whatnot, it works quite well. And so I just recorded everything, and then it sat there.
So that's all. This is all live from those recordings.
Yes. And so it sat there for whatever until earlier. My friend Matt Ferguson, who works at Line 6, and he wrote me and he goes, hey, we're making a video for the launch of the Pacifica, and I want to use some of your ambient recordings that you did when we filmed another video. And this was something completely unrelated, to Metanoia. But one time when I was filming a video for them at East West Studios, he's like, hey, can you just do some drones? And so we have some background music that we can maybe use later. And so I did. And so he said, hey, I want to use some of those for this new video. And I said, oh, yeah, of course. He's like, and I said, Kay, can you send me everything that you have? And so I listened to it, and I was like, oh, because I thought, oh, it might be enough for like a little EP or something. Because he said, oh, you should release. He goes, you should release an album of this stuff. It'd be really cool. So he kind of put the idea in my head. I thought, oh, that's a good idea. And so the stuff he sent me, I said, oh, it's not really that good. And then I remembered I had all this stuff from Toronto.
Right.
And so it just been sitting on a Dropbox folder up in the cloud, because the people from the production manager in Toronto had sent me, a Dropbox link, and I don't think I never even downloaded it. So thank God it was all still there.
That is
it was
so funny.
I know, and it was all still there. And so, but then I had I had to sit and sift through 6 hours,
7 times 45 minutes worth of
yeah.
Easy.
And it was, and because my initial thought was that I would just cut up a bunch of pieces and make. I always wanted it to be a double because I felt like it needed to be kind of long and slow. Long story short, there was some good moments, and I could have put it together in that way, but actually what is on the record is 2 complete performances, because I felt like on the last morning, Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon, something just kind of clicked a little bit more, and you could just hear it like from the first note on. And so, and I thought, and there's something a little bit special kind of getting, because I thought there was something special getting the journey from beginning to end rather than cutting it up, because it's kind of like chopping up kind of consciousness a little bit. So I felt like, oh, there's something special about having it from beginning to end, and it all worked. And so that was great. And so then I chose those 2 performances. But it's funny because in the second one, because a lot of it is looping, and so there's loops and the reverse and slowed down and pitched up, but all on the fly. And sometimes I would just let the loops play and kind of solo and play over it, kind of like Robert Fripp does, with his Trippertronics. That's a kind of a big inspiration and influence. And so sometimes it wasn't always loop recording. And so in one of these was I hit like one bad note, because you're just in the moment. I hit like one fret off, and it's like the most dissonant, horrible, totally ruins the mood. And so I was like, oh my God, okay, when we were editing, I said, we're gonna have to somehow try to figure out how to cut that out, or what are we gonna do? But because of the nature of of course, if you made chops or edits, it didn't sound good.
Right.
But with the with technology now, with Melodyne, which is, like an auto tuning function, they have a polyphonic version. We were able to go in and take that like 5-second section and find the one bad note and just pitch it up, and it's
That's
completely
amazing, man.
and I know it's incredible. And so that's the only kind of digital trickery that was done on it. Just there was one bad note and we were able to fix it. And now when I listen to it, I can't even tell where it was. It's incredible.
Dude, you got 70 minutes worth of recordings and you had one note. I think you could ease up on yourself there, man.
It was
pretty
tough
good.
because I have to say I never improvised for that long.
Right.
3 minutes, 5 minutes is one thing, but and so it's funny because during those performances, I asked for a countdown clock so I could, because otherwise I'd have no idea how much time was passing.
Okay. Yeah, that was a smart call. Because
Yeah,
otherwise
and
you're just out there like, someone give me a sign, right? Yeah.
yeah, and it's
Oh,
funny
that's clever,
because
actually.
I'd start playing and I would get all into it, just really focused, listening, you know, and then I'd be like, oh my God, half an hour has definitely passed by. And I'd open my eyes and look at the clock. I'm like, oh my God, only 10 minutes is gonna I'm like,
So then
I'm like,
do you panic a little bit when you see that? Because you're like, that's a pressure.
um, I have to say, just a little more, the space was huge. It was like 2 football fields, massive, at least 100-foot massive video wall that I was playing in front of that had this kind of changing gradient colors. So it's very beautiful against the backdrop of the city. And so they had speakers kind of all in this field. So the sound was really immersive and kind of spread out. So you had to really react. So what I was used to practicing at home, like in here in my studio with monitors facing me, was kind of completely different when I was out in the space, which was great. So you had to really react to what was going on, which is kind of the point of the whole thing, is to kind of
Yeah.
be present and be in the moment and kind of be, it kind of almost in a meditative state in that way, and try to get out of the thinking mind as much as possible, and just kind of be reacting to what's going on. And really, you have to really listen because you're creating things. And as you create a loop and you start building density upon density, you're like, oh my gosh, okay, what am I going to do? I have to react to what I'm hearing and play over it and decide to, because you can't really, because the way that I was looping, you couldn't subtract anything. So it was all additive. So sometimes you'd kind of back yourself into a corner and realize, okay, I'm going to have to figure out a way out of this. So it took a lot of like computing. I felt like even though I tried to say I was in the moment, it was a different part of my mind. And so it was exhausting, completely exhausting in a way that a rock show is not, that you've rehearsed the songs a million times,
Mhm.
you're playing, like, what you're doing. It's a controlled environment. This was not so much a controlled environment. So yeah, after the weekend, it was very, very tiring, but it was a great experience.
So I have a few questions
Sure.
based on what you just said. First, you said you have to get out of your thinking mind. How do you do that? When you're on stage, as you said, you're doing a 3-minute solo or 1-minute solo or 5-minute solo even. You have support. So you can sort of like drop everything and just focus on get out of the thinking mind and just do your thing for that, however many bars or minutes you have
Mm-hmm.
to do that. How do you do that in an arena where it's you, period, and like it's 18 minutes? How do you do that?
Well, I should kind of correct myself and say my thinking, because you are thinking, but you have to be focused on what you're doing, which is very different than sometimes when you're like in a rock band and you're playing, like you can be like, okay, I'm playing a song and I'm wondering, what am I going to have after show? What's the food situation going to be like? And you can just kind of like be a little bit on cruise control because
What's the
you've played the
food
song a bit. This is
situation?
like,
That's
you really
great.
have to get into deep listening, and I think that's what I was kind of referring to, is you have to get into that deep listening, and and
But
and
you're managing everything up there. How do you? I mean, you don't have five guys.
no, and it was crazy because there was, wind and rain at one point, and they put a cover on you, and and then they're taking it away.
Yeah. How do you manage all that? Because it's a lot of.
um, you just have to immerse yourself in the music.
Uh,
That's what it is. You have to kind of block it all out. Yeah.
how did you get that gig? Curious.
I had been working, this artist during the pandemic, Krista Kim. She reached out to me about doing some video collaborations on stuff she was doing, and so this evolved out of that. Because
Okay.
she was, at the time, she's since relocated to Los Angeles, but at the time she was living in Toronto, and so she was involved in that art community there. And this is something that she was able to get, some funding from the city, and to do this.
Okay. Cool. And then the other question I had for you: you're doing 7 of these.
Yes.
How do you? It's ambient music. How do you not like? I mean, look, if you have 7 solos in a night, you even have to be somewhat mindful. The solos are a minute long, of not repeating the same riffs. How did you manage not repeating, not doing the same thing over and over again? 7 times 45, that's 282, 315, that's 5 hours plus.
Well, I think that it's funny because I think that sometimes I'm not, that the term improvised, people have different notions of what that means,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think, especially with music, when they say, "Oh, it's improvised," people tend to think like, "Well, you're just completely making it up, like something you've never played before. It's brand new." But that's not really what it is, because improvisation, like right now, is we're having a conversation, right? We've never had this conversation. It's a new
Sure.
conversation, but we're using words and phrases that we've used before. And improvised music is very similar. Like, you have maybe themes and structures that you're going to use, but you do them in different order, or you start a different way. The tempo is different, and so the language, the syntax of it, like the sentences that we're creating right now, you're creating different um you know different types of meaning, even though you're using the same words. So are
Sure.
you using the same kind of melodic phrases or whatnot? So even if I had, okay, I'd like to start with this kind of motif every time, because of because of just how you're feeling physically, to what you're hearing, to the tempo being different, so the delays are acting different. Once you kind of get into it, and if you're listening, once you kind of create a series of phrases, you start reacting differently, because it's not exactly the same every time. So it's really about cause and effect, putting something out and then reacting to it.
Right.
Yeah. And it's never
Wow.
the
Okay.
same. Yeah. Because it's never the same.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it? Like, you can never step into the same river twice.
Yeah. I get you, man. And this is why I like talking to you, because I can put my brain through a
Yeah.
workout. You use like 5 words there that nobody else has ever used. So,
Yeah.
um, I give you credit for just releasing something like this so quickly. I know you made it a while ago, but my thoughts are, when you make a major career change like that, no matter what the reason is, I think something like that takes a lot of courage and a lot of soul searching. And I would also imagine it's, because I've done stuff like that myself, it's easy to like second guess yourself because everything's new, So, um, it's easy to second guess yourself on anything you might do as like your next act, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts on any part of that process that you're comfortable discussing.
Well, yeah, thank you actually for asking, because that's been something that's been really on my mind, and that's been a really probably one of the most difficult parts of the process of leaving the band. But because I think that you can overthink that,
Oh
so it's
God,
really,
yeah.
yeah, and it's so I've really had to kind of work through those ideas, and a lot of
Yeah.
it really is when you start thinking about what's next, why is, and if you really start exploring it, you really get into kind of, and this is like stuff that Steve I likes to talk about, really stuff is, things that are based upon your ego. Well, I have this persona. I was in this band. I was playing arenas. I could have been playing stadiums this summer, and now what are you gonna do? You're gonna play art gallery, or you're gonna play, you know what I mean? Like, how
Yeah,
are you gonna
yeah,
make
yeah, of
money?
course.
How are you gonna do? How are you gonna provide for yourself, or whatever? All those things that you can start thinking of that might, because you're like, yeah, I like, certain maybe certain things that your egos become accustomed to, that may or may not have anything to do with music, but may have to do with outside forces. So, yes, of course, all those things go through the flow of thoughts. But what I really liked about when, I said, like, when Matt suggested, hey, you should do something with in this type of stuff that you've done. I liked it because, it's very, Metanoia, the album is very, in certain ways, it's it's simple and it's ambiguous.
Right.
It's not like, hey, I sat here and I worked on these songs for 10 months and it's a big kind of artistic statement in a certain way. It's more of just a feeling.
Yes,
It's
it is a
it's
feeling.
it's it's more about losing things than gaining things. It's more about
Yeah.
letting go than get, and so I liked that. I really liked that. And I like the ambiguity of it, because to me it's like, I think the personal journey that I've had to go through is I've had to try and let go of my ego attachments about what I've accomplished, who I am, who that guy was on the stage in the arena with Smashing Pumpkins, and go, what do you feel like doing now? And so this to me was more like a clean slate, and I like, and it's the, this is we were having an off camera conversation about Uli John Roth and his kind of life going through the octaves, as
Yeah.
kind of a metaphor for life's journey. And I really feel like, okay, this is kind of a start of a new era for me. And I like the ambiguity of it, because it's not pointing me in any one place. It's very open and wide. And I think, like you said, I think in the intro, you said, yeah, it's not surprising that I would maybe do something like this, because I think things that I've done in the past, like with my earlier bands, being more shoegaze type of bands, that
Definitely.
these types of sounds and tonalities are things that I've gravitated to in the past, and they certainly are. And like I said, the influence of Robert Fripp and Brian Eno and a whole host, tons of, the list, I could go on and on about people that actually influenced me or inspire me, that do similar types of things. But I like the fact that it was a more ambiguous statement, that it wasn't like, hey, I'm disco now, or, I'm Don
Yeah.
Hit. I like the fact that it's open and wide, and it's just sound.
It's a
And
lot
that
less
sound,
pressure on you
yeah, and I think the
as well,
sound, yeah, can be
which is
shaped, and
smart.
it's very, but it's also extremely personal.
Yeah.
It's maybe the most personal thing I've ever done. And so that, in that way, it's a little bit scary, or, feels vulnerable, but, you know, I don't have any expectation of it more than just of the more than other than just the music. Like, I'm
Right.
not like, hey, like, I'm expecting this to do well. Of course, I want to sell them, because the label, Chris at Clara's Story, who's putting it out, you know, um, I don't want him, I want him to make back what he put in.
Sure, of course.
But
Yeah.
I mean, but that wasn't my motivation,
Right.
to put it's more of just, I think where I'm at now as an artist, I just want to be able to document where I'm at. And so this Metanoia seemed to be like a very decent place to start. And also because I don't think I'll ever make anything like it again, which is why I didn't want to try to recreate it, because I did that. And I think that my ideas are already growing and changing. And so but I love that I was able to document that, because I feel like it's a good starting point. Maybe so, I think that we like to think of our timeline as is defined by these moments. Like, okay, so you quit October 2023, you quit the Smashing Pumpkins. This is when this portion of your life started. But maybe that actually wasn't true. Maybe this portion of my life kind of actually goes back there. And that was what I did at that time was the beginning of something else, but it just took me a while to kind of get to the next step, because I was on the second, not the third yet, of
No,
the majors. Get to use Uli's terminology, but
yeah.
I'm just kind of kidding, but that basically maybe took some time to kind of get there.
Well, I think I have this expression, man, you can't connect the dots moving forward. So when you did this thing you said it was 2020 or
2021.
21, you had no idea like how critical this thing would be in your life.
Yeah.
Because you can't connect the dots moving forward. You just never know. And I know you mentioned ego, but I think a lot of it is identity. Music's one of the few professions, maybe not one of the few, but when you're a musician, that's your identity. It's not just, you could work on an assembly line, be really good at it, and like that's your thing. But the emotional connection that you get through playing music doesn't usually exist in many other fields. And so I think it's hard to change your identity. Your identity was, Smashing Pumpkins guitar player. And that seems to be that's tough to do that, man. I give you credit for doing that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it is. It is, because you feel like, well, what do I do now?
Right. Now
Because
what's my identity going to be?
in all honesty, it's like, what a great band. Great bandmates. Billy Corgan, one of the great songwriter,
Absolutely.
producer, guitar player. Jimmy Chamberlain, one of the greatest rock and roll drummers ever. I mean, the band was just fantastic, and I loved playing with James and Jack, and all the other people that played in the band over the years. It was just a magical experience. And to go from, for me, like all I basically had played clubs, to gone from that type of musician to being able to do literally everything.
Yeah.
From late night TV shows to arenas to headlining the biggest festivals in the world, to making a record with Rick Rubin, to you name it. I got to do all those things. So I'm very thankful for that. And that's, I think, I guess what I came to, after leaving was, you can't replace that. I think it's foolish to think like, hey, like this is going to happen again. I think you look at it for what it is and appreciate everything about it, all the people involved, the good times, the bad times, and just, really have love and appreciation for it. But I think, because, kind of what motivated for me to leave was that the thing is I had a life before I joined the band. I was, getting my doctorate at UCLA in literature, and I had a life there, and I just left it because I obviously had this really great opportunity, and I wanted to do it. And like I said, I mean, it changed my life completely in mostly good ways. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, of course, the music industry is tough, and you have your ups and downs, and sometimes you have to learn lessons the hard way, like any industry,
Sure.
But I did have a life before, and so I think as I kind of reached, the the midpoint of my life, I turned 50, and it's like, started, our 50 was coming up, and I said, well, you start kind of thinking, you're like, I'm taking good care of myself and doing the best I can, but you only have so much time to be actively engaged in things. And I started really thinking like, well, as great as this is being the guitar player in this band, um, I think it made me comfortable in a way, and has nothing to do with the band, the people. I think it has to do with me, and that I was able to go, well, I'm making a living, and you know, get on the bus, play the shows, do the tour, play the songs, and even though you may have it in your mind, like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, for whatever reason, I couldn't get into the gear where I was accomplishing those things. And that's on me, that's nobody else. No one was holding me back except myself. And I just felt like after thinking about it for so long, I don't think I'm ever going to be forced to recreate myself in the way that I think I want to unless I kind of let go of all these things. And so I think that's kind of was really the biggest motivation in leaving is going like, I don't think I'm going to become the person that I want to try and be by being here still.
Man, awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Not many people think that much about what they're getting out of the life. And then, of course, when it's over, they didn't get as much as they wanted to.
Yeah. And, it's scary. I actually had, I'm not going to lie. Like some days are like, what did I do? And why am I doing this? And this is hard and it feels unnatural because I've always had this thing to kind of lean against.
Yeah.
And now I don't. But it's funny because you think sometimes like, well, I made it this far. What did I do? But you kind of sometimes forget like, well, yeah, you worked hard, you overcame obstacles, when you face challenges, you dealt with them,
You went to that audition.
Yeah. Or applied to graduate school, and I no one in my family went to college. You know what I mean? So even things like that,
That's
like okay,
awesome.
let's and
that's pretty impressive. Nobody in your family went to college, and you were studying for your doctorate. I didn't know that.
I mean, people went, but no one got their degrees.
That's pretty. I didn't realize that. That's pretty impressive, man.
Yeah, and so it wasn't like something in my family that was like you were groomed to become an academic or anything like that, or be artistic, or it came from a very proudly from a very blue collar working class family. Sure. But yeah, and so that's fun when you think about it. When you get into when you go like, man, like okay, like I have a chance to kind of recreate myself and go for it again. And so when I get kind of in that, once I get into that mindset and I kind of get over like the anxiety of it all sometimes, then I start having a lot of fun again.
Good.
A lot of fun. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. And it's great.
My next, it's a long comment / question, is very relevant to this. Years ago, I was going through something very similar, a very uncertain time. And I had no clue what the hell to do or what my next act should be. And I was reading a book at the time called Finding Your Own North Star, Claiming the Life You Were Meant to Live. And it was written by a woman named Martha Beck. And I think she grew up in a devout Mormon family, left the church as a young woman after she had kids, and then was ostracized. And in her book, she was saying that when you're in the middle of a huge change, the best thing you can do is just be 100% present. Don't have expectations of anything. She said, I remember reading this, she goes, this is not the time to think about your 401k, or if it's going to be big
Yeah.
enough for you, or anything even medium term. She said, just look at it today. And I wanted to share that because I found that so helpful to me at the time. I mean, incredibly helpful. And it paved a way, amongst a lot of other things, to me. It was the start of me learning to be present in my own life, which I had never done before. And it was which it sounds like you've not had that problem. You sound like you've had a very good awareness of being present. But anyway, I thought it was just really helpful, in my own journey with that stuff.
Well, no, I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think that I'm aware of what I should be doing doesn't mean that I always do it. And, and that's, where a lot of stress and
That's where the
anxiety
stress comes in, man.
or
Yeah.
depression or whatever, however it ends up manifesting is because of those things. Because you feel like you have no control. Yeah.
Right.
And maybe you do, maybe you don't, but I think so that can make things difficult. I think for me, I think when I look back at my life and I think like, well, what got me to where the different places that I've gone, it's been like a passion for something without any expectation other than what it is. And to be more specific is like with music, I didn't get into guitar because when I was a young child, I didn't get into guitar because I thought like, hey, I can make a living doing this. I just liked it. I liked playing, and I liked being able to make sounds and be able to express myself. Then, of course, you realize, okay, wow, there's people out there that do this for a living in it. But I just like the feeling of being in a band and playing a song together. And honestly, to this day, there's nothing that replicates when you create something new, either by yourself or with a group of people, and you hear it either in the practice space or coming through the studio monitors for the first time. And you're like, that's fun. You know what I mean? That's just pure joy. And so now I just think about like, okay, just get back to start from there again. Get back to where you just enjoy music, like, and the same it was with literature. I never thought like, hey, I just want to be a professor. What should I be a professor of? Oh, literature. That's a good idea. It is like, no, once books and writing and those things came into my life, I just had a passion. I just wanted more of it. I just said, I got it. And so it was like, well, how can I learn more about this? Okay, well, then I should go to college. And then when you go to college, you're like, well, I don't want to stop after 4 years. I want to keep on going. Okay, I'm going to go into a PhD program. The fact that you could work as a professor, that just is like, okay, that's a byproduct of the passion.
Of the
So I
passion.
think that you can. So I think like for me during this time is my only expectation is just to kind of be true to just like enjoying things for what they are. Like I said, music is music, reading, writing, literature as those things. And then slowly start moving out, because I think that's the thing is people after leaving the band, people want to be, so what's next? Because, and at some, on my worst days, I get maybe a little bit offended because not so much at the person, but at myself, because you're like, yeah, maybe you should have more of a plan. What do you mean? You just like, you should have a big plan. You should have it written out like, okay, this is what's going to happen. But the more I've gone through it, the more I realize I was in that band 16, 17 years. I have earned the right to spend some time just letting go of all those things and kind of, enjoy life, walk the dog, hang out with friends, get back to just, hey, I'm practicing things on the guitar that that I want to practice. Not that I'm complaining that I had to prepare for tours and get paid well to do it. I'm not complaining,
No,
but
clearly that you're
it's
not doing
just
that.
different. It's just a different thing. And so now I'm like, okay, let me focus on being a different type of musician. The type, because I've had as far as being, like I said, as far as being a musician, I've had to always counterbalance things that maybe I wanted to do against being in that band,
Sure.
which everybody in that band has to do, and anybody in any other band has to do, that's
Absolutely.
been successful. And so it's not a slight on that by any stretch of the imagination, but but it's funny. So to kind of get back to a little bit of what I guess this podcast is supposed to be about guitar. I I've been like, because I'm gonna start playing around a little bit more and stuff, and I don't have a pedal board.
That's awesome. That's so funny.
You
So
know what
you
I mean?
gotta
I
get
don't even have a pedal board because I had my monstrosity of a guitar rig for Smashing Pumpkins, and then
yeah.
I would just come home and it'd be more recording projects, so I never needed. But now I'm like, okay, I need, and
Well, how
I don't
cool
know
is
what
that?
to,
Now you get to go out and get a pedal board.
but I don't even know what to use. That's the thing, is like, I'm like, what is, and so I was talking to Dave Phillips at LA Sound Design, and he goes, what's the Jeff Schroeder sound? And I was like, I don't know anymore. You know what I mean? So I've been, but it's been so fun. So I've been in here in my
That's
studio, like
fun. Yeah.
going through and playing stuff and going like, what is it? How do I want to put this together? And even something like that has been, so different than when I was, before I was in the band. I only had so many things. And so that was, what you could afford. That was my sound, because it's like, well, this is all I got.
Right. Right. Right.
You know what I mean? And, but that's kind of great. That's actually what it should be. When you have, actually, now we're in a world of just so many options. It makes it difficult, because you're like,
Very.
well, what am I using? Is there a better overdrive? Is there a better distortion? Is there a better delay? Is there a better, what I mean? It's almost like
There's
it
too
was
many
easy.
choices
It was
sometimes.
there
Yeah.
honestly, in my opinion, there are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Well, especially, you know what? Because, sorry, but because you are a bright guy,
yeah.
I know that you're going on there and looking online and you're like, huh, this pedal does this and this pedal does the same thing, but it has a doohickey. And so then you look at because you are a bright guy, you're like you're passionate, you're curious. And when you're curious, it's a blessing and a curse, because you're like, when do you stop? I've had to put curbs on myself. I know that, because I'm a very curious person. Like, if I'm researching something, all right, I can't keep looking at this forever.
Yeah.
I've started putting caps on myself of like, okay, I'm spending 25 or 30 minutes on this. That's it. And I'm making a decision based on that. And so whatever that decision is, that's the best decision I'm going to make, because that's what I'm giving myself. And it's tough not to, with all these choices.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that, when I look at most of the best players, they kind of stick with things for a while before they change. They're not always changing it up,
Yes.
and even, we were talking about Satriani earlier, and he's finally on this tour, and he's noticed he's using different amps. He's switched to third power, which is cool, but it's I mean, he was on the Marshalls. He had his own Marshalls, and for a long time he wasn't switching every tour, and I like the
Right.
fact that, because you have to be, I think, as a player, you when I learn from the best, there's a certain there's a certain connection to the sounds, that because it becomes an extension of your personal voice. And so I think that being thoughtful about that, I think that in the past I wasn't so thoughtful about it. I was just like, I want to have everything at my disposal, because when I'm working on a song or working with an artist, I want to be able to gravitate towards it. I want to be able to go, oh, I know the sound for that, or whatnot. But but I don't think it's really the most effective way, these days. I've kind of changed, and I think, so I think committing to things is powerful. And in this day and age, when we in anything, like you said, I think like what you're talking about, committing to something is hard because you're like, but and we have that's our personal relationships to our guitar pedals, to our job, to
No, it
it's
is. But
yeah.
I agree with you. It's beneficial. I did this thing last month, and because normally, I have a few guitars, and I switch them up with any given day. And I said, you know what? I'm playing this one guitar for a month. I'm not going to touch another guitar. And I haven't been playing guitar long, Jeff. I've been playing guitar 6, maybe 7 years now. Like right when I started the show. Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I played instruments. I played saxophone as a kid, and I was a very good musician. I played at Carnegie Hall, but I only picked up a guitar 7 years ago. I always wanted to play, just didn't
Mhm.
have I had kids young and whatever. I didn't have support at home. And so I just played this one guitar, and I was talking to my music teacher, and I said, I finally learned, because I've heard, I've had close to 1,000 guests on the show, and I finally learned when they say, I'm really bonded with this instrument. Just for a month, I finally learned what that meant. And it was such a great experience doing that. And I came to the same conclusion you did. Of course, I have to now do that with all of my guitars, play another one for a month, only. But it was a great joy, and I felt very close to the instrument. I felt like I was starting to understand it and speak to me a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. I think developing that relationship with it is important,
Yeah.
because you learn the nuances of it, and you learn that because ultimately I think sound and playing and expressiveness comes through your hands. And
Yes.
you know, uh, in the obviously if you have an instrument that you feel like you're just encountering limitations of like, well, my hands want to do this and this instrument doesn't have what it takes to do that, then I can see that. But so that's a bit of a journey sometimes finding the right one, but yeah, I've definitely now that I'm haven't been in a situation like with the pumpkins where I'm carrying you know a, a whole what they call it, a guitar vault full of guitars.
Yeah.
I just playing very few, that. And but also to me, I mean, this is another thing unfortunately we didn't have the record button. We just kind of started talking about things, but we were talking about Uli John Roth. And another thing that I feel like I really picked up from him from talking to him is, I don't know how he would phrase it, what language he would use, but from what I've picked up on him through the years is, you know, I call it like integrity of sound, integrity of tone. And so when you ask him, like, well, why aren't you using modeling, or why aren't you using that? He goes, well, I gotta, like, it just doesn't have the sound, and um, not to get into a debate about digital versus analog and all that stuff, because I think
Sure.
that for some people, they may find their sound in the digital realm. And I've heard, and I think, someone like Satriani has said this. He said that, you know, and he's been a big analog guy forever, using amps and cabinets and pedal, and not going down the digital realm so much. But except when he played on the Howard Stern thing, he used that Fender thing, which was cool, I mean, because it was practical.
Right.
I mean, and those are decisions that we make too, and so I like to use digital things too because they're practical. But I lost it. But what he has said is that for many people in the audience, they don't hear the difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it's not about it, but what it is about how you feel, how you react to those things. And I think that and this is just me. I have no, data for this. Someone, can completely disagree with me, and it probably just honestly has to do with dating myself as like what I like.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But
Which is all you need to worry about.
yeah.
Seriously.
But it seems like, in this day and age, we have less people with like these kind of signature tones. Whether
Yeah, you
it's
don't have a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughns
or
around.
Eric
Eric
Johnson's,
Johnson,
where
yeah.
or even Satriani has that, and Vi and David Gilmour and Brian May, and
Yes.
obviously the King Eddie Van Halen, right? Yngwie
Yeah.
Malmsteen. You know what I mean? Like, it's the playing, but it's also the tone.
Yes.
And and back then, a lot of those people were using similar things because there wasn't so much available, and so it was about
That's a great point. So they're
tweaking
all using
things.
sort of similar things, but everybody sounded vastly different.
Yeah, like tweaking things, like what can you do? Jack up the amp a little bit, like this weird pedal and this, to try. But but also, it comes down to just their hands, because I was listening to a podcast the other day with Vi and Satriani, and they were talking about how they were doing a photo shoot for this last G3 tour, and Satch had one of his amps set up, so both him, Vi, and Eric Johnson all played through the same amp, same settings, and they all sounded like themselves. So
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Because it does come down into the way, you pick the articulation of it and things like that. But also, when you hear those guys in their element with their gear, there is a thing that's
Absolutely.
special. And so for me, I think that's kind of more like I need to have a little more I need to put a little more dedication into that. And that and I think that a lot of what that means is kind of being committed to, like I said, this thing that I call the integrity of tone.
Yeah.
And whatever that means to you. So if that means like, hey, I find that in all modeling, because I know I can manipulate the digital in a way that really speaks to the sound I'm hearing in my head. Or for someone like me, it's like, no, I think I maybe gravitate again a little more to using tube amps, analog gear. Always going to have some digital, just because I love my Line 6 effects. You know what I mean? I just love having everything. And I've been using those things for so long that I've just, it's just,
Why would you
I don't
not?
say
It's just
easy for me to, and I like them, but as far as like, looking for distortion sounds and whatnot, I've really started doing some very deep dives. And one of the, greatest blessings that I've had from being in this industry is, being able to have relationships with extremely talented people like, Mike Pierre at Analog Man, who was, I wrote him recently because I started going down this Jimi Hendrix rabbit hole, of of wanting to recreate those sounds, just going like, I want to see what it feels like to be behind, the driver's seat.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So the right kind of fuzz face, the right kind of Octavia, the getting the the really accurate replication of the Univibe, and so people like Mike and then Dave at LA Sound Design give him, because he's builds boards for clients all the time, so he's the king of building Hendrix boards. And the only reason I say this is because it makes you really learn about sound. It's like you kind of get there and you plug in the board and you're like, well, there it is. You're kind of getting some of those sounds. Obviously, I'm not going to do a Jimi Hendrix tribute, but
what did it feel like when you got those sounds? Because that's a pretty cool thing. Did it feel weird or
tough? Because it's not what you think it is.
because you're not
And
Hendrix?
yeah, and
Yeah.
it doesn't, because you've heard it on records, through a microphone, through a mixing board, off a vinyl or a CD or a cassette, what I mean,
Right.
or now coming out of a digital, which isn't the same as hearing it in the room.
Yeah.
It's two completely different things. And so once you kind of start wrapping your head around it and learning how to to get it and learning how, wow, like you really interactive with the guitar. Like you really got to manipulate the volume and the tone controls and all those things. But I think most importantly, what it's taught me is to listen to what's going on, and what is inspiring then to me is, because to me it's I guess this is the intellectual side of me, and so this is how I'm kind of answering your earlier question of like, yeah, so I'm tweaking with this stuff, but I am someone who's like, okay, well, let me go back to the beginning then. Let's go back to Hendrix and let's see, because that those pedals were like some of the only things that existed. It wasn't like he could be like, hey, I want to
Yeah.
use this. This was brand new technology at the time, and so it was like,
Right.
how can I take this basic thing, a Fender Stratocaster, Marshall amp, and then I can I can accentuate it with these other kind of tonal palettes. And what's fascinating to me is to see something like, okay, then how does it's like it's creating a story, and so it makes, how does someone like Uli John Roth coming out of the Scorpions, how does he take some of that, because he was obviously a huge Hendrix person,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, but is able to kind of take that as a start and then build on top of it and do
Yeah,
his
create his
own
own
thing.
thing. Yeah, totally.
And then someone like Eric Johnson, okay, like one of his signature tones is the fuzz face sound, and like but it's different than Hendrix, but it has echoes of it, but it's not exactly the same.
Right.
And, because he's a different type of player. And then I love, I started thinking about like, wow, Satriani in the early days when he was using the DS1, he had a DS1, the chorus pedal, and maybe like an echo or something, but that was like the DS1 was his version of the fuzz face, because he
Right,
never
right.
used rack stuff live. It was weird that he always just used pedals. Most of the time I don't think he ever had like a MIDI switcher. He just ran them in line, like an old school. In a way, I always thought when I was young, I'm like, wow, Satch is like he was on the forefront, like a very modern, postmodern guitar player almost. And then, but he kind of had this kind of old school way of approaching like his rig, and so I really loved that. So those are kind of the things that I think about, like, these guys, but what connects them all is they all created signature sounds.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's because I think they have it goes into deep listening. And so once it takes so much time and effort to get even one sound to be totally happening with articulation and nuance, that once you start adding too many things, you just mess up the stew.
Man, I agree with you 100%. You look at guys like another guy, Rory Gallagher, I mean, just played a Strat, didn't sound anything like Hendrix, didn't sound anything like Robin Trower, but he did his own thing and it was amazing. And he was just using, this was a guy who was, broke early on. He probably didn't have any effects to whatever extent,
Yeah. So, to me, to kind of take this whole conversation for full circle, is that all these things to me are connected, so the musical life, spiritual life, sound, I think that, it's easy to look at them as kind of living in their own separate sphere, but I think it could be powerful when there's a thread that starts connecting them and interweaving in, and if you can kind of have, like I said, some kind of search for purity of sound, and like I said, that purity for you may be digital. I'm not saying you can't find it there, and I'm not, like I said, I'm a hybrid type of person. I like to use both,
Sure.
but I think it's kind of searching for things that can help you develop your voice on the instrument, so it becomes an extension of you and how you want to speak and how you want to sound, and that's something you got to really spend time with and learn to listen. Yeah
I spend a lot of time on that, actually, because I'm trying to figure out what my sound is. I know what it is in my head, but as you know, getting it out is not that easy.
Yeah, and then it's like he's got like, wow, okay, this pedal is pushing, or this distortion thing is pushing me there, but maybe I need to it only sounds that way when I pick this way. So is it something that I got, I mean, you see guys like Eric Johnson, he picks in such a unique way, and it has so much to do with how the distortion reacts, and so
Yeah.
it's, you start realizing it's not just the gear, it's how you manipulate the gear, and how you're able to play with it, and how it's a conversation taking place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that was
And
heavy.
like with people, right? It's like some people like, hey, I like to talk to a lot of different people, and other times it's like great to have a series of conversations with a smaller group of people, and then you get to know them on a deeper level. I think it's kind of more like that.
Yeah, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to the title of your album, Metanoia. So I looked that up,
Uh-huh.
and not surprisingly, it means a change in your life, but it's often resulting from penitence or a spiritual conversion. How did you discover that word? This is what I'm talking about. You're like, yeah,
Well,
I'm like not as anywhere near as well read as you are, but
mhm.
I've read a little bit and never even heard that.
Yeah, I never came across it until more recently in my life. And so I think that that's what is interesting about being an artist, is that, and putting out music, is that they're kind of snapshots of what you're into at that time, because like I said, to me I really feel like my part of my like kind of life project is integrating these worlds, and so, like I said, the artistic life with your daily life, with the spiritual life, with these things. So, um,
Have you thought about writing a book on that, or like putting a program together on that?
of course,
Yeah.
of course, of course. So I, over the years, I'm not a traditional religious person by any stretch of the imagination. Although I've had periods in my life where I grew up and I was, um, when I was a kid, I went to church, but I was never forced to believe anything. My parents were, um, they had their beliefs, and they were, but they weren't dictatorial about anything in a very good way, so I've
That's
always been interested in those things, and I think I had but then I've had interest in like highly, let's say, academic intellectual things too, like which led to my dream going to graduate school. And I would say, if and just to it's hard to characterize these things. I'm just, these are kind of blanket statements. Is that, but academia can be a place where, especially like in a literature department, unless you do certain types of like religious based things, or older types. But if you're kind of doing more contemporary or modern literature, modern literatures, which I was, it's not a place where spirituality and, say, religion and say other types of philosophical ideas meet, because it's a
yeah,
very
very true.
humanistic, humanistic type of endeavor, which is great. You know what I mean? And so, you could maybe go down a different path to where you're like, I just want, we're studying kind of what humans do. I don't know. We don't necessarily, we're not going to say why they do them, but, or prescribe it to, say, like a god or anything. But I think but I was still always interested in those things, but, any type of like narrow-minded or dogmatic approach to religion just didn't speak to me. So I've read widely in, so from Buddhist texts to things that would have been considered more like New Age types of things to, um, you know, all sorts of things. But more recently, I kind of fell into, I guess it's more like the mystic tradition, like Christian mysticism, and this, I think, is more because I never grew up a Catholic, so I think it's more of an offshoot of kind of Catholicism, to a certain degree, but there are certain Protestant mystics as well. But I think it's a little more prevalent within the Catholic tradition. But so I think, and there's mystic traditions in Islam, Sufism, and and I think once you get into it kind of there's echoes of a lot of similar beliefs, even in Buddhism and whatnot, and where these kind of worlds meet. And so I came across the term metanoia in reading books of this sort, and I
Okay.
think like the first level of definition that would say is kind of repentance, but it is also making a change or a transformation. But also I was looking because I saw I was thinking about your question, and it's also another definition too is either to go beyond the mind or go into the larger mind too,
Okay. I
which
didn't
is
see that
some of
one.
the
Okay.
and that's why I named the record that, because to me that's where I'm at, and so that's what kind of the ambiguity of the record to me is that is to be in this kind of open space, and because that is to me it's kind of a restart, a rebirth of things. And so I like things that aren't clearly defined right now, because I want to because it is a shift, a change, a transformation. And so this is just the beginning of a story, and I'm living it.
It's funny you mentioned that about you're uncomfortable with the dogma of religion, because I am as well. That being said, I didn't grow up with there was never a mention of God, anything, religion. And there's a part of me that wishes I really did, because I find that people who are who have had a long history of spirituality tend to be more grounded. I'm actually attracted to them. I get along. There's a little bit more of a, I don't know, just for me, it works, And so there's a part of me, it's like, man, well, if you're born with this and you are fed it, it's fed to you like dogma, and you don't have to think. Which is, you know what I mean? It's a weird thing, but that's my discomfort with religion, the dogma, because I'm not really sure, it's not a black and white world.
Yeah, and I think that's what can be tough about when you're born and raised in something that you can't think of, say something like God, right? If you grew up in a certain type of traditional Christian home, you may think old white man with a beard,
Right.
Male,
Right.
from Europe, even though it makes no sense. I mean? They have
Right.
this notion, what I mean?
Right.
And even if you're like, well, wait a second, what if this idea of God is something more expansive than that? And you kind of have to move beyond these kind of forms. That can be really difficult if
that's all if you've been spoon-fed 2 + 2 is 4, well, maybe 4.5. No. Yeah, that's a tough. So it's like liberating not to have those restrictions.
But I think, I was gonna say, for me, and this is me, and everybody has their own opinion about this stuff. Is I think that it's throughout the history of civilization, people ask, "What are we doing here? Why am I here? What's going to happen to us? How did we get on this place? What are we supposed to be doing?" All these things. And so I think that different cultures in different parts of the world have created and worked on philosophies and theologies that try to address those questions. And I think that when you kind of look at different traditions comparatively, you find certain similarities. And I think that those similarities are when certain types of truths come to the surface of however a certain type of people or culture decides to narrativize something. And to me, that's what I find attractive. So certain types of symbolism, if our traditional symbolism, may be useful if to me, they tap into kind of this larger, as I just mentioned, the larger mind.
Yeah.
And and what is kind of attractive to me about like the mystic tradition is that it's really based upon, you know, a certain letting go of static ideas and images about, you know, spiritual matters, and you know, especially about kind of letting go of kind of, because once you think you've captured something, you know, you kind of almost like kill it, you know. We can't, you know, as you know, we can't say what God is or anything like that. I
Of
think
course.
it's
Yeah.
yeah. So, but I think our mind wants to know. You know, we've grown up in a very rational type of culture and civilization where we like, well, explain it to me. Well, you're like, well, I can't explain it to you. I can only, you know, I can't. It's kind of beyond, you know, and that's hard for some, for, you know, it's hard for me sometimes, because sometimes I have a mind like where I have a very curious intellectual mind where I want to know, like, and I want to systematize something that doesn't want to be, you know, and
Right.
that's, you know,
Yeah.
and so when I talk to people in this tradition, you know, I'm like, I'm talking about books in this tradition like they're distortion pedals. Wow, this one came, you know, and then this book came out and this guy said that, you know, but it's, you know, sometimes, you know, you talk to like a spiritual director or something, be like, but Jeff, remember, that's really not what this is about. It's not about
Right. Right.
creating another system.
Man, I know exactly what you're talking about, because I'm reading
Yeah.
I'm reading books on Christianity now, and I need proof because I didn't grow up with it. So you know, I'm trying to intellectualize it. I don't know if that's possible. You either believe or you don't believe, but that's hard to do when you're 60, right? To like, I don't, you know what I mean? I'm like I'm trying to think this through. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, I think that there's truths to be found in many places, you know what I mean? So, you know, I think that for some people, like I said, if like I said, this is just my opinion, you know, and it's not worth anything, you know. So, you know, I mean, that there's useful information in many places, but that those kind of symbols and that symbolism can be useful if looked at in the right way. That's what I would say. Yeah, I mean
There you
that. You
go,
know, I mean
man.
that's all I'll say, because I don't, you know, I don't want to, you know, sway you one way or the other. You know.
Yeah. Thank you. Dude, we're far afield from guitar. This is awesome.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the shoegazing band you're in, the Lassie Foundation, prior to the Pumpkins. So I knew that. So I really wasn't surprised when you had this ambient music. What hooks you in particular about this kind of music?
That's a good question, you know, because I've been listening to stuff like that for so long that I don't think about it. Like what gravitates me towards those types of sounds. Well, I would say that it's this, you know, and I think Brian Eno was, you know, someone who talked about it in this way, is that with the advent of these kind of technologies, whether it's reverb, distortion, you know, you could kind of create different environments that are kind of maybe more imaginary, you could say, or maybe are better suited to representing things in the unconscious, you know.
Okay. Yeah. So you
So
that you
I
enjoy
really,
that
I think I
aspect.
like that, and I like that the kind of, like I said, I think that maybe I gravitate towards things that, this is a kind of a you know, a literary term, you know, but that defamiliarize the familiar.
That defamiliarized the familiar. Okay. No, that's so
Yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah. So taking something like a normal guitar sound, and how can you
right.
play with it, you know? But now, you know, in those early days of shoegaze, there wasn't a lot of gear, you know. Like I said, you know, and these
Back to that
bands
again. Yeah.
had to kind of work really hard at creating those sounds. And you know, with even the early days of the Lassie Foundation, we were able to do things. We always struggled live because we didn't have any money, and we couldn't we had a hard time being the band live that we were on record because it was hard. Now there's so many pedals that replicate a lot of
There's
rap
there's
gear,
so
and yeah,
much gear. It's
and so
insane.
now it's so cool. There's the shoegaze genre has just exploded,
Yeah.
and which is, and I feel like, and because I work with a lot of bands here in LA, and a lot, they're all younger than me, and so they're very excited. Oh, like, yeah, we really like this sound, and I'm just like, oh my god, like I've been, like like okay, but what's so cool about it is it's migrating and transform. They're taking it, and the talented people are taking it and going on like, okay, we're all doing this thing with delay and reverb, and then now certain people are trying to, how can we, and that becomes kind of concretized and systematized in a way that it maybe wasn't in the earliest days because there weren't so many people doing it. So now it's like, okay, now there's a lot of people doing the same thing, and so someone's going to go, well, I want to be different, how can I do, and so and that kind of develops and moves the genre.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Pushes
you
it.
start seeing people starting to do really cool things, and you start seeing like that kind of shoegaze sound popping up in different types of music, not just traditional shoegaze too. So it's cool. Yeah, but I think, like, to me it always is more associated with kind of, like I said, making things sound like creating these different environments, atmospheres. Yeah.
Definitely. That's cool, man.
That get into, like, and that's why I think it was always a lot of the early shoegaze bands had like this kind of we're doing like kind of neo psychedelic looks and stuff, because I think it kind of coincided with psychedelic music from the 60s and stuff
Definitely.
too, this kind of mind expansion, and this shit we've been talking about.
Definitely, man.
So yeah.
Your record, 4 tracks, is Retour parts 1 and 2 and Air and Dreams parts 1 and 2. Is Retour a word, or was that like a play on detour?
It's just a French word for return.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was inspired, but there's a book that was really important to me. It still is important, by a Korean American writer, Teresa Hak Kyung Cha, and it's called Dictate. And it's a section of that book is called Retour, and so it's kind of a homage to her.
That's cool.
Yeah, and
that's nice.
And Air and Dreams is a homage to it's kind of a French philosopher, Bachelard, who his book's called Poetics of Space. And
all you
so,
literature guys are big into the
yeah,
French.
and so
Yeah.
because I was like, what am I going to call these things? And so yeah, so the Air and Dreams is
they're great names for the music, actually.
yeah.
To be honest
So
with
it's
you.
funny because I
Air
lived
and
in Korea.
Dreams,
I lived
part
in
1 and
Korea.
2.
No, I lived in Korea for a while, and I used to go to this coffee shop, this really cool coffee shop called Anthracite, and it's they're still there. I think they have a few locations now in Seoul, and really great roaster, and so they had all these cool mugs, and so I went in there so much, and I think maybe when I was leaving, they knew I was going back to the States, and so they gave me this mug with this Gaston Bachelard quote, and and it, but it's all in Korean, but I was, I could whatever to translate, and it was Air and Dreams. And so I always was like, oh, I want to use that someday. And so I see it in my cupboard every day. And so I'm like, okay, there's going to be a time and place for that.
Oh, that's cool. And now it is. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man. That's good when you have something like that. I'm going to do that one day, and then you actually do it. Not many people do that.
Mm-hmm.
What was the biggest thing you learned from putting this record together? The whole experience.
Just how, what I learned is how fun it feels to create something. Like,
That's
it just
great.
was, it was from, And I think what was powerful about it is that since it happened fairly quickly, is from the time when Matt Ferguson was like, "Hey, you should think about doing something like this," to downloading the files, spending it took me a couple weeks to, because I had to sit there and like really listen to everything and take notes and and figure out, okay, what am I going to use out of this? What's going to be the best? To then asking my friend Colin, who's a great artist, to do the artwork, and then Chris Stellman at Claire Story AV, the label, because at first I was going to put it out myself, but I knew that I really wanted it to be like a really beautiful, high quality release, double album, like gatefold artwork and all this stuff. It's just a lot of, a lot of time, a lot of research. And so I knew that it would probably be better to have someone handle all that rather than me, because I just wanted to focus on the art itself. And so Chris has been such a great supporter that he actually wrote, when my old band, the Lasting Foundation, was doing some reissues, he said, "Hey, if you guys want some help putting them out, I have a label and I'd be more than happy to do all that for you guys." And at the time,
that's really cool.
we didn't want to do that, but and so with this, I said, "Hey, I have this thing," and he was just like, "Whatever you want, just do
that's
whatever
really
you
nice,
like."
man.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah. He's like, "I just want to support you. I've been a fan forever. I've seen you play with Lassie. I've seen you play with the Pumpkins. Whatever you want to do, I'll here to help and support and all that." So,
and let's give him a plug. What's the name of that? What's the name of his label?
Claire Story AV. Yeah. We'll put in this. I'll give you the information. You can put in the show notes, and then
that would be great.
Because and so he just wrote me this week and said that the test pressings are going to rise. So it's just coming together fairly quickly, and it's been completely uncompromised from day one, which is, like I said, so it just, like I said, it feels very good in that way. And I've been able to work with some of my closest friends. Like I said, my friend Colin did the artwork. I did all the editing and mastering, and not really mixing because it was just a 2-track recording anyway. But with my friend Josiah at the Cave in LA, which is a studio that I work with him all the time on all kinds of projects. And so it's like my community, my friends, and that feels really great. And then just to see, but like I was saying before, it was like, okay, it's like these files in a Dropbox folder to like, wow, that's the artwork. That, when Colin sent me the first, like, he's like, "What do you think of this as a cover?" Because I sent him some inspo things, but I'm really not someone who likes to say, like, I like to, like, if I'm asking someone to do something like the artwork, I said, just listen to it, and I want to see what you come up with. And the stuff he came up with.
That's the whole point. Creativity is, you can maybe give a little thoughts, but I understand.
I told him, I said, I want it to be minimal and have a lot of space. I don't want it to be super busy, things like that. And the stuff when I saw it, it just made it seem like, okay, wow, now this is really taking on, it's becoming this thing. It was just, but it's actually
from a Dropbox link.
Yeah, it's becoming this thing, and then coming up with the titles for the songs, and then the liner notes, and all that stuff, and to have it happen, and now it's like, wow, it's happening, and I'm talking to you about it because it exists. I mean, it's been cool. Very gratifying in that way, and to me, that's a success.
Hell yeah, that's a win.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about. I mean, of course, I want to share it with people, and I want people, but like, it's all going to make, if I continue to work in this flow and within this energy, it's all going to make sense.
Good things are going to happen. Yeah, man, I agree with you. I agree with you.
Yeah, and that's why, I told you, I said, I knew when I was talking to Chris about putting it out, I said, well, there's a few people, like I said, I want to try and do some quote unquote promotion. Meaning that I want to talk to people that are in my community. And then, and so you were one of the very first people I thought
Thank you, man.
about. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's kind of you. Thank you. I want to ask you, I want to tell people where to get the record, but do you do production? Like, do you work with bands? If there's people
Yeah.
listening that have bands, uh, how would they reach out to you? Or like,
They can, most people, they just actually, honestly, like, I think the easiest way that people is they just send me a message to my Instagram. I have a website too. I have my website, which people send me messages there too. There's an email thing. And so I get those too. So either my website or Instagram. And yeah, I do I don't really like to do stuff remote so much. I can, but it's, but I'm open to that too. But yeah, but usually I work with artists here in LA.
Okay. So is your website Jeff Kim Schroeder? Okay, it's Jeff Kim Schroeder
.com.
.com. So it's SCHROEDER, Jeff Kim, KIM. So how about this? If you're listening to this and you're interested in working with Jeff in the capacity of production, having him play sessions or collaboration, send him an email through his website, enclose a Dropbox link of your music. So let him know what you're interested in doing, why you think he's a fit, and send your music over so he can get back to you with an intelligent response of, yeah, this sounds interesting, or, best of luck, this probably isn't a fit. But give him as much information, like do unto others, as you would need to make a decision, and go from there. Is that like a fair?
Yeah. Or Instagram too is fine.
Or
too.
Instagram. DM him on Instagram. Either way.
Yeah, it's fine.
But please send him music and be respectful of his time, and everybody's busy and stuff like that.
I tend to not do things just for the money. Stuff that it's only if I feel, because it's really to do a good job, you have to be invested. And so my energy that, I know some people that they're like, anybody that pays whatever the hourly,
you got a pulse, hourly, you're qualified.
I'm doing this gig, and that's great too, but I can't do that because I put too much into it.
Yeah, and you can't put good intentions on shitty music, or that your perception is not your. Do you know who Joe Barresi is?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I had Joe on the show, and I'll never forget. He told me, great interview, and he said his dentist was dying for him to produce his record or to mix his record, and he said he'd give him 20 grand. It's not like a big record. He goes, look, man, I'll give you 20 grand. And Joe was like, no, for the same exact reason you just said. It's like, man, I've got to be invested in this thing. There's a lot of work involved, and I've got to be behind it. And so, I think a lot of musicians and creative people are like that, because you have that emotional outpouring in what you're doing.
Yeah, because it's, I think the integrity at some point rises to the surface, and to do a good job, I feel like you have to be invested. And if I'm just not invested, or if I'm just not the right fit for the musical style, like it's not something that I'm into, it's like, how can I do a good job if I don't even really know what I'm supposed to be doing?
If it's not even right, if it's a genre, like, where do you even start? It's like the amount of work you have to do to get up to speed, when they could just hire someone who's already there and do a better job. I totally get it, man. I totally get that. I get some people sending me PR, some PR people. Some of these artists are big, but I'll listen to it. I'm like, I can't have the guest on because I can't promote it.
For the most part, like why I like to work with people here in town is just because I can do a lot of stuff here in my studio. So if we go do drums somewhere else, we can do a lot of the, because I have lots of cool that, like, even though I said, like, I want to use this, but I have
it's got lots of cool pedals.
Pedals, guitars, and amps, and synths, and so yeah.
When you got all your guitars back out of storage after they sent you everything once you left the band, were you shocked how many guitars you actually had?
I wasn't shocked. I mean, because I kind of knew, you know what I mean. But yeah. It's funny because you think like, oh my god, like how but then after a while you're like because it makes and people don't understand why do why do you need so many guitars? It's like, well, because when you're in a band of at a certain level, you don't see those guitars unless you're at a gig or a
Yes.
rehearsal. They live in and I don't think people think like, how do those guitars get around the world? Is like, well, when you play in Europe or South America, they go on a boat and they
Right.
sit in the ocean for 6 weeks as they're floating across because it's the cheapest way to get, so most bands like the Smashing Pumpkins, like we have two, there's two sets of gear.
Right. A
And
and a
so
B. Yeah.
and so you end up going like, well, I don't want like my favorite precious guitar to be in a sea container
Yeah,
with the
man.
sun, what I mean? For and so you just get stuff that lives there, and so then you end up like acquiring, like, having to, so in both my rigs, I think each rig I had to carry 11 guitars.
So you had 22. So how
22
many?
guitars just in my pumpkin, in the current rig, which doesn't mean that there was, and there's stuff that I've used on past tours that I wasn't using now. So yeah, the number gets up there quick.
So like, what do you think is in your collection? 35 guitars, 40?
More than that. No, I more than that. Yeah. I would say that I'm close, probably closer to 100.
Oh my God. Holy
Yeah.
shit. I would never leave home. That is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. But I don't,
Wow.
but yeah, I don't plan on, yeah.
When's
But
the Jeff Kim Schroeder reverb guitar?
yeah, I know. Yeah, I haven't planned that yet.
Closer
But
to 100. Wow, that's
but
amazing.
the thing is I had over the years like, such a great relationship with Yamaha.
Sure.
And so they really supplied me with a lot of cool guitars, and they would throw me prototypes, and so you get things that not necessarily like, hey, I went and like, but it's like you just start accumulating things, you know what I mean? So
That's wild, man. Holy crap.
there was a lot of, over the 16, 17 years, you do a lot of different types of tours, from acoustic tours to we had times where we're like, hey, we're playing everything super down tuned and heavy, so you have guitars for that. You know what I mean? Then we're like, no, now
Yeah.
we're going back to standard tuning, and
Dude,
what I
no
mean?
need to make excuses for that. God bless you. That's
So
awesome, man.
there's guitars, there's amps too. I mean, because I'm historically bad at getting rid of anything. So that's something that I'm trying to really work on is part of kind of is letting go of certain types of attachments to these things.
Yeah. Read Marie, what's her name? Marie, you know what I'm talking about? The lady.
Marie Kondo.
Marie Kondo, yeah. A buddy of mine had a, he was tough at organizing and letting go, and he told me he read it. He did a good job with that.
Yeah. Marie Kondo, yeah.
There you go.
So, yeah.
Hey, man, Jeff, I want to thank you very much for like going so deep. Let me tell people where to get the new album. It's called Metanoia, Metanoia. It's on Bandcamp and any place where you can get streaming. Also, go to jeffkimschroeder.com if you want to buy the physical album. He will have links on his website taking you to get the record. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the Claire Story AV Bandcamp is going to be the best, place to buy the vinyl too. And Claire Story AV has their own website too, and so I'll give you all that stuff, and you can put it in the descriptions and show notes. Yeah.
Right on, man. Any final words of wisdom?
I think I've said enough. I've said enough today. Yeah.
Man, thanks for everything. Thanks for your kind words. It was really thoughtful of you, and I'm glad we got to connect again. And I wish you nothing but good luck and happiness and joy in all the future endeavors that you do as you connect the dots.
No, you've created a quite impressive archive of discussions, and I think that for someone that wants to do the deep dive, there's a lot of great interviews that you've done here.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All righty. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Again, please check out Jeff's new record. It's called Metanoia, Metanoia. And I got to tell you right now, for ambient music, you can literally do anything while you're listening to that record. It is like the most relaxing. I was shocked. I was like, wow, you can literally do anything with this. Anything from like, working out to laying down to doing the wild thing with your partner, whatever you want. It's just like in the background there, and it's like very chilled out, and it feels good. So enjoy the music. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, share it on your socials. We appreciate all the support. Thanks and continued success and best luck to Jeff Schroeder for everything. If you ever get a chance to see Jeff play anywhere, take it. He's a phenomenal player, and he's got a good spirit on stage too, which comes through. And that's it, man. Most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Until next time, peace and love, everybody. I am out. Jeff, thank you for everything, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.